What's up, guys, and welcome to the Hollywood Dreams podcast. On today's episode, we talk with the glam king of Ohio, Brad Slitt, from the band PRISCILLA. We had a really deep conversation that ranged from facing your own mortality and cancel culture to hanging out with Jovi and Sebastian Bach. So, either if you're a longtime fan or new to his music, tune in, relax, and listen to this great conversation that we had. So, without further ado, this is Brad Slitt. Hey, Brad, how are you, man? Welcome.
Good, man. What's going on, Santi?
I'm doing great. I'm great. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. It's good to talk to you.
Well, it's a pleasure having you here, man. What's up with you? I heard you just got back from your honeymoon. Is that right?
I did actually, yeah. This past week, I got back last on 4th of July. We got back, and then
Nice.
actually just today, I literally just had to race home. I just got home from my good friend's funeral, which I just gotten the message while I was on the plane that a lifelong friend
Mm.
of mine had passed away while I was on my honeymoon out in Key West. And so that's been all going on this past week. But I literally just walked through the door and hooked up with this interview right after my buddy's funeral.
Wow. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, a little bit of a downer to start out with, but just keeping it real. But yeah,
Well, I mean, I'm really sorry for your loss, man.
yeah, man, thank you. Yep,
So,
it's and it's that's I'll touch on that. Just
no.
mortality. I've had so many good friends that have passed away. Even just in the last 3 year or the last year, I've buried three of my really close friends I grew up with just in this past year alone. Actually,
Mm.
four. And just that takes a toll on you. And it's the reason that I I think it's relevant to speak about all the things that I'm sure we're probably going to talk about in this interview and why it's who we are. And I see this resurgence. I've seen a few local people, local bands getting back into it and getting out there and getting their old material out there. And like they're having this reawakening of realizing what life is about and what their life has meant. Because now I hate to say it, but my generation, the people that I grew up with, the bands that we, worked together, played together, grew up together, we're at the tail end, man. We are facing mortality. So now we realize what had relevance in our life. So we're trying to voice that and commemorate why we did the things we did, why we were here in the first place, why we made the music we made, you know. And it's just nice to share that, I guess, to leave a legacy behind. Just to put it real bluntly, I mean, that's what it's all about at this point in life is just trying to do something maybe that in some small way made a difference and that affected people, maybe brought people some happiness, some joy, gave them some good memories, and I think that's important, I hate to sound like that, the guy that's looking at things from that perspective, but I've been doing that for quite a while.
Yeah.
Now I actually had a big change in life when my dad passed away at a really early age, and that was some years ago now. It's actually like 15 years ago or something now. So at that point in life, I really started to realize that I need to up my game and just make things count for a lot
Mm.
more. And then I need to really live in the moment and just try to change but the immediate world around me. Not that any of us can change the world as a whole, but we could all change the world around us. So if I could just bring a little bit of happiness and do things in a cool way, in a good way, I guess, um, for the people and things around me, I think that's important. So, anyways, yeah,
Yeah.
before I go off on that rant, so yeah, so I'm just feeling a little deep, and spiritual in that because of just things going on in the past few days, past week.
Well, I mean, I love that, and I think you just said a lot of very true things, and what better way to you mentioned leaving a legacy. So what a better way to do that than spreading good, fun rock and roll music for the world to hear.
Right. It's one thing. I mean, I'm not a politician and I'm not I'm not a doctor who's out there saving lives. I can't do that. I guess my gift, if you want to call it that, has always been entertainment one way or another.
Yeah.
I was a ham growing up in a way. I was a shy kid, but I liked, I realized I loved being in the spotlight from a very early age on. My mom was a big Elvis fan when I was a little kid. I remember her
Mhm.
watching Elvis on TV, the Aloha from Hawaii special and things like that. And
Yeah.
I realized I saw how cool that was and how it affected my mom. And I wanted to be that guy. I just thought, man, that's music is really cool. Rock and roll is really cool. And I always was drawn to all those things and the fashion of rock and roll, if you will. It all goes hand in hand, And I know, there's a lot, people try to, pick apart like what's important in music, what's not. And they try to, like the grunge movement killed the glam movement because the glam was so over the top. So grunge came out, wore drab colors and flannels and dark, dirty,
Mhm.
dingy clothes. But I think very much, and it's all part of entertainment. I mean, there's all colors of the rainbow. Um, but that being said, to me personally, I've always felt, and my mom was very, and to this day, she's a very fashionable lady. She's always been into, she still dresses up. She won't let anyone even see her in her place if she's not dressed up. That's just her thing. And she always dressed my brother and I up growing up, and then she was just very into that. And rock and roll was so much a part of that. Like I was at a very young age before any of my peers were into it, I was into David Bowie and things like that. I was always very influenced by shock rock, Alice Cooper, and Kiss was obviously a huge thing. That was a major, major influence at a young age. My mom bought me my first Kiss album, and that really changed the trajectory of where my life was heading, I guess. But everything I always noticed a real cool fashion sense, whether it was, in the Rolling Stones and Mick Jagger and Keith Richards, and they always had their dirty, fashionable style. And David Bowie was always so cool with the way he brought off his whole aesthetic. And I always liked that. I was always drawn to that, and
Yeah.
which is where the high fashion name for the album came from the Priscilla album, because I just think it's cool. I think that all goes hand in hand. I've always loved people that could effectively do that. And I think like one of the last guys that did that was Scott Weiland, who was just he's a big, I don't want to say influence. Not like I grew up with him, but I think he's one of the last true rock stars that we've seen.
Mm.
For rock and roll. I mean, you got your teeny pop idols, you got your American Idols, things like that. But Scott Weiland, he was a true rock star, and he went out in the most rock and roll way, which is very sad. And
Yeah.
actually, that's a guy that I hung out with him just days before he passed away.
Oh, really?
My friend's band, the Biters, were on tour with the Wildabouts, Scott's last band,
Yeah.
and we were at their show in Cleveland. And it was just, real soon after that, within days after that, that Scott couldn't believe that, I heard the news first thing in the morning.
Hmm.
Someone reported to me, I wasn't even awake, and they said Scott Weiland died. I thought I was just dreaming it or imagining it, and it just blew me away. But man, I thought that guy, and still do. He's a rock and roll icon. He really is. I think he'll go down in history as just a really great entertainer. To watch that guy on stage, he's doing what every rock star should do. That guy is just amazing, and he put it all together. Like I said, in that sense of putting fashion together with rock and roll and having that rock and roll edge and that that darkness about you, that cool, the James Dean and rock and roll type of thing. And that's who he was. And I love that. I love that he brought that. And it's just a shame that we're not going to get to see him do
Yeah.
anything further,
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
anyways,
I get what you mean. Like having this, he had this sort of larger than life atmosphere to him, right?
absolutely. Yeah, and just what an entertainer too,
Mhm.
and it's just to me, it's the last band or the last rock star, the last big rock star that really moved mountains with what he did to me was Marilyn Manson. He was the last guy that effectively changed the direction of where rock and roll was heading. I mean,
Right.
what he was doing, I guess, was an underground, it was alive in the underground to a sense. I mean, the whole goth scene was just starting up, and Marilyn Manson just exploded and blew it up, and he brought it to the masses. But I mean, like what he did, no one's doing that anymore. And shame
Yeah.
on his ex-fiance for doing what she's doing with her hashtag Me Too stuff, because
Mhm.
that's a real shame. I mean, it disappoints me that whole thing even happened. And I mean, obviously it's I believe going away now. I watched her. I don't know if you're. I don't know. I think I'm going into territory here that I don't know if you're familiar with it, with the whole, all the things that she accused him of and that, which was,
I've, I've read some news articles about it that I
yeah,
haven't.
essentially he was a bad boyfriend. Who isn't? When couples break up, why do they break up? Is it because someone's a great boyfriend, and so
Yeah.
the girlfriend or fiance decides to leave him? Hey, you're the best boyfriend ever, so I'm going to leave you. No, it's because they were a bad boyfriend, or a bad girlfriend, whichever. And that's what
Yeah.
he was. I'm sure. I mean, come on, man. His first song on his first album. What is he? Who does he announce that he is? He's the god of fuck, and she knew that going into it. You
Yeah.
know.
I guess
And
that's true.
that's
Yeah.
who he was, and that's who he is, and that's what put him on top. That's another guy that, he's from the Cleveland area, he's from Canton. And he was around in this scene, but he wasn't playing out or doing anything. And then friends of mine introduced me to him in Florida, in Hollandale, Florida, at a club called the Button South. He walked in, I
Okay.
was hanging out with some buddies of mine from a band called Tricks, and
Oh yeah.
TRYX Tricks. Yeah, you might be familiar with them. Half of them moved out to LA and half of them stayed in Florida. My buddy Alan Vine, who ended up playing with Vince Neil and a bunch of other bands, Impotent Sea Snakes and some other bands. Me and him were
Yeah.
hanging out with some other friends at the Button, and in walks Marilyn with his lunchbox and actually he had the whole outfit on that he had on Portrait of American Family. And he walks in and saunters up to the bar. I said, "Who is this guy, man?" And then we're all glammed out. This is the glam scene. This was like the early 90s. And they said, "Dude, that's Marilyn." I go, "Marilyn? A dude name is Marilyn?" And he said, "Yeah, he's cool. You like him. He's from Cleveland." He wasn't from Cleveland, but that's in my friend's head. It's close enough. Canton's close enough. So I mean, we're right, right
Right.
down the street from one another. So I go, he goes, "Let me introduce you, man. You like him." So in the meantime, Marilyn's setting up little army guys. He opens up his lunchbox and he's setting up little plastic army guys all around his beer on the bar. And my buddy introduced me. And at that point, Marilyn told me what he was doing. His band, the Spooky Kids, was just starting up. And then they hooked up with Trent Reznor, who was from Cleveland. And actually, Marilyn done an interview with him for a local music tabloid. And then Trent gave him a developmental deal. And that's where the whole thing started from. And then actually Trent hooked Marilyn up on the first album with Tony Sula, who owned a club called Peabody's, which is where Priscilla played their first show. So everything kind of came full circle. So Tony was Marilyn's lifelong manager up until this past year, when Marilyn's ex-girlfriend put him through the ringer, and everyone washed their hands of Marilyn. His agency, his booking agency, his manager, which I was shocked to see Tony do that. Because that him and Tony had been through thick and thin. That was Tony's only guy. Tony was his guy for 25 years. And
Yeah.
I was sorry to see that. And it's really sad because, man, like everyone's whitewashing entertainment, the whole, and I think it's going to come around because the whole Me Too movement, that ironically, Marilyn's other ex-girlfriend, what was the one from the Death Proof movie, or what's her name now, Rose McGowan, she kind of helped to head up that whole thing with the, accusing Harvey Weinstein of what he did. And, that guy, I guess he had what's coming. I mean, that guy he's just a bad person. Marilyn Manson was just a bad boyfriend. Whole different story. And Rose vouches for Marilyn being a good dude. And I mean, like I said, I knew Marilyn. Was he a dick? Sure, man, he could be. Did he have an ego? Oh, yeah, monster ego. He tried hooking up with my ex-girlfriend at the time I was with her, right in front of me backstage, like he as an ego thing. He was trying to, one up me and show me that he could do it.
Right.
So I know what he's about, but does that make him a horrible person that everyone should Sean? No, man, he's an artist. He's a brilliant artist. To me, he's in his last album was one of the best. We Are Chaos is one of the best things he's done in 15 years, in my opinion. I thought it was a brilliant album. And I think he's a brilliant artist, and I hope he makes a huge comeback, man, because he should. I hope people don't aren't so disinfected, I guess, uh, by what's happened, that they abandon him, for his art. But I hope he stays the course and he makes a huge comeback, because he should. 'Cause, I think it's like, again, I think it's dangerous territory we've moved into with the Me Too movement that spearheaded this whole homogenized entertainment scene. Because what's going to be left if the entire intent of rock and roll, in one way or another, one form or another. I mean, you go all the way back to Elvis and before that. It was to offend adults and offend the masses in some way.
Right.
If you were to be offended by it. I mean, Elvis shaking his hips was considered offensive in the 50s, and parents guffawed at the idea of him doing that, you know. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah,
And
what
I
are you gonna
mean,
do?
if you
You
take the
know, you
danger out of it,
yeah.
what is left?
What are you going to sing about? Sunshines and rainbows and puppy dogs and nothing else? I mean, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful part of life, and that's a whole another part of life. And you could listen to gospel or religious music, or I guess a lot of country music, in a sense. But even that, that tends to trend on. There's some dark territory there, especially if you go into outlaw country or something like that. So it's like, at what point does it stop? And at
Right.
what point, what's going to be left? And I'm going through all of entertainment, whether it's movies, TV shows. I mean, look at all the people that have been blackballed, that have been canceled by society. And I see it happen even on a local scene. I've seen people being canceled. I made some films, um, out of the Cleveland film scene community here, in the last few years. And I saw that going on even in this local little film community of people, of filmmaker wannabes, that there's some talent. There's people that
Mhm.
could actually do something, but they're so trapped within themselves and within their own confines of what they perceive as being told to be correct by the remainder of their peers or society or those around them or whoever they're trying to impress. And you got these people that are locked into a crowd of 100 other people that are their yes men, and that are supporting them or showing them some sort of attention, and they're being blackballed. They're blackballing others, for the simplest of things. And I find it silly. And when you rise above that and see beyond that, when you've been there and you've traveled roads and you've seen the world and seen things from different perspectives, you realize you can't do that, man.
Mhm.
The greatest artists of all time have have drastically done things to offend people at one point or another, through, whether it be through painting, through writing, through filmmaking, whatever it may be. No, don't break laws. No, don't hurt people. But also use your head, man, because at some point there's going to be nothing left, because again, like, what can you do when everything has to be PC? I just saw recently, I was joking around with my wife that I'm going to become the world's first politically correct comedian. I'm going to do stand-up comedy that's all whitewashed, and it's essentially humorless. But I was joking about that, and within a week or two of me telling her that and laughing about it, I heard about some female comedian that's coming through town, and she was, I don't know, she advertised herself as the Queen of Clean. That was it, the Queen of Clean, and her humor was all politically correct humor. It was ridiculous. I was listening to these commercials. I'm like, oh man, you got to be kidding me, man! Like, what is this world coming to? And it can't
Right.
stay that course. It just can't, because eventually it'll come full circle, and then what you'll have is the backlash, which is what always happens, which is like, like you have the Beatles, who people are like shocked by at one point in time. And then what was the response to the Beatles? The Rolling Stones, now those are some bad boys, they're shooting smack, and they're banging your daughters, and they're doing all the things that rock and rollers do. It's like, at that point, parents are wishing the Beatles were back, you know? So, and it always goes in that direction. So, man, you're going to have the response. It's a call and response thing. And when you get the response to what's going on now, and, you know, it's almost got to come. I don't think it could stay on this course, like I said, because else what will be left of art? Nothing, you know?
Yeah,
So,
and there's I agree with that, and there's this like sort of almost Victorian era puritanical uh, society that they want to drag us into, right?
right,
Where I don't
sure.
know, where sex is dangerous and
Exactly.
bad, and we don't want to do that. So uh, almost like everything that was achieved during these 60s and 70s sexual revolutions, it's a sort of now it's looked at like in a bad light, right?
Exactly, man. My point exactly.
Mm.
And so here's the thing, you know, they're blackballing people like us. We'll use Marilyn Manson again for what his girlfriend did to him, his ex-girlfriend did to him. Um, okay, so he's blackballed because he was bad, uh, a bad boyfriend, a bad fiance. At one point, he supposedly emotionally abused her. You know, and again, I watched her two-part miniseries special, whatever it was, on Hulu, I believe it was. It was on one of the streaming services, and it was a joke. I mean, her, you know, the drama she tried to create was essentially nothing. It was again, it was a bad breakup. It was a bad relationship, you know. And she was his mistake was going for someone so much younger at the time because you know she came from a different generation than him, and she thought in a different light, and she was growing up in that Me Too generation, and that's what she was pushing for. But let's look at this. So Marilyn Manson gets canceled for being a bad fiance. Hey, what about the guys from Led Zeppelin that were banging 13-year-olds? That their girlfriends were 13-year-olds. What about Elvis banging 13-year-olds? What about the Stones banging 13-year-olds? Oh, what about Aerosmith banging 13-year-olds? What about and I keep using that because it's all you know in today's day and age. I mean that is absolutely shocking, you know. But up until the 70s, man, Ted Nugent, you know, all those guys. Well, Kiss, you name it, man. You name a band.
I mean, I think
They were they were
you can't
banging, they were
judge.
banging 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds. I'm not
Yeah,
saying that's right by any means. I'm not condoning that, you know, I'm not in support of that. I'm just saying that's the way it was. So you want to cancel people for doing, you know, things that are considered outrageous by today's, meter? Man, you're gonna have to cancel everything Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin and everything that was ever great, everything that we listen to in music that is considered great music, whether it's the Beatles or the Stones or Elvis or whatever else. It's all got to be whitewashed, man. It's all got to be. We gotta eliminate that by going by the standard of what's considered to be correct, you know?
right.
So man, like again, people have to people have to really open their eyes and people have to see what's coming around and what's going on around them. Because guess what, man? That the next person you cancel is going to cancel you. And I've seen it happen even locally. Like I said, man, I've seen what went on in this even the joke of a local scene on a minute level. I've seen people that were trying to cancel other people suddenly get canceled by their peers that they were canceling.
That's
And it's
crazy.
like, man, it's a bad joke. You want
I
to
mean,
throw
it's like a
stones,
witch
man?
hunt.
It's what it is. It is a witch hunt. And if you're throwing stones, man, you better live in an impenetrable fortress that is sterling clean and white. You better be a priest, man. You better be a choir boy that's never done anything wrong. Because I assure you this, I can tell you this. There is not a soul I know that I can't throw stones at. Do I choose to? No, man.
Right.
I keep my mouth shut. People are people, man. People do what we do. And again, and I have this conversation on a weekly basis with people, man. Just live a good life. Be a good person. Make effectively change the world around you to be a better place. Help people. Be nice. Be sweet. Smile. Make someone's day happier if you can. Of course, things aren't always going to go great, but do what you can to be a good person. Is it going to change the world? No, but it will change the world around you. And do that. And that's all you can do. Don't conspire to do bad things. And then, if you live in that light, eventually things turn around and good things will happen to you also. Of course, there's always going to be bad things. We can't stop loved ones from dying. We can't stop bad things from happening. They do happen. Um, but like we can try to be good people. And again, that being said, man, just live and let live. Just be that person, man, that turns the other cheek, man. Don't put your nose up in the air and don't think you're better than someone. And I've seen that end of too. I mean, I see that still, man. I've seen it happen just recently without getting into any details. I've seen bands that were up and coming and their attitudes got a little too big for themselves. And all of a sudden, man, they think they're on top of the world, and they are for 1 second in time. And then the tide changes, and all of a sudden they have a bad run of luck, a bad stroke of luck, and things don't go in their favor, man. And I just saw some big things that happened to actually an acquaintance, a friend of mine that was, man, he just had the world handed. He had a giant tour. He was going to be on the biggest tour of, that's going on now. And then, things just yeah, went sideways for him for his end of the tour. And man, it cost him a lot, and I feel for him because he deserved that break. But things change in a wink of an eye, man. They really do, and they can. And so just try to always be cool, man, and try to do the right thing. And then hopefully you'll land on your feet and things will go good, and then things will bring the light back to you that you're giving to others, and that again, that sounds spiritual or hippie-ish or too overly zen or whatever you want to label you want to put on it, because it's not that, but then
I get
again,
you.
it is that in a way, you know what I mean? We all just
Yeah.
need to be cool to one another because, man, again, it all flashes by so quickly and then it's gone, it's done, and you don't have a chance to be cool anymore. You don't have a chance to to have fun even anymore. And who wants to just shit on everyone's parade all the time and make life a miserable place for others? That's just it's not a good thing, man. And if you're busy conspiring to do that, eventually that you're gonna get caught up in your own shitstorm.
No, yeah, that's a great that's a great statement, and yeah, I agree with you. But to get back to the music,
Right? Yeah. We're all over the board now, religion and life, and yeah.
yeah, and that's
Sorry,
good.
man. Didn't
That's
mean to go off on a tangent there.
no, no, no. That's completely cool. I like that. But we gotta talk about Priscilla at some time. So
Oh, yeah, that's right. I
so
thought you just called me to chat. Okay, yeah, let's talk about
so how did you got involved in playing music? Was Priscilla your first band, or how did you get started in
um
music?
okay. I was like I said, man, I was into music from the time I can remember. I mean, honestly, I remember, I think the first time I saw Elvis, which would have been, I guess, the first rock star I saw, my mom and my brother and I were watching a movie called Love Me Tender. It was, Elvis's first movie. And I remember my mom crying at the end when Elvis dies. And I think even at the age of, I believe I was like 3.5 years old, I just remember watching how this guy affected my mom. And I asked my mom all these questions about, who he was. And she told me, oh, he's a rock star and women love him and this and that. She told me whatever my little mind picked up on, whatever it perceived it to be. But I knew he was a rock star, and that appealed to me. And then around that same time, there were other Elvis movies on TV, and again, like the Elvis Aloha from Hawaii special was coming up, and uh, or live from Hawaii Aloha, yeah, whatever from Hawaii. And the Tom Jones. There was a show called the Lawson's Tom Jones Hour or something like that. It was a local a Dairy Mart type of place that sponsored the Tom Jones show. I don't know if you're familiar with Tom Jones. I would assume you are. But she used to watch that. I think it was a regular weekly thing. And again, same thing, man. I saw the ladies all screaming for Tom Jones. And he had his cool about him. He was the safe Elvis or whatever. He was the prim and proper Elvis that wore the suit and. had the tan and the nicely combed hair and all that. And you know, that again, that I picked up on that. I always picked up on those things, those little things that I thought was, so whatever resonates with us as humans, as individuals, that resonated with me. Obviously, it didn't affect my older brother as it did me, but it sure affected me. And then when I was 5, my mom had she bought me a little record player, a tiny little, 45 playing record player. I didn't play albums very well, but I did play albums on it. But I got, uh, she bought me a Down by the Lazy River by the Osmonds. I was 5 years old. Now, I didn't know what was what. I remember we went to the store. I was with some older cousins of mine, and one happened to be a girl cousin, and she picked out the Osmonds Down by the Lazy River because she was into Donny Osmond. And but which to this day is a pretty badass song, man. If you listen to that song, it's freaking holds up, man. Like it's cool. I didn't listen to it. I hadn't heard it in years, and it came on. I think I was in a casino in Vegas or something, and that song came out over the sound system. And I was like, man, that is a cool song. It's got a great hook, and little Donnie's voice rocks. It's got a cool tone to it. And but anyways, she got me that 45. One of my cousins picked out Wild Horses by the Stones, 45 at the time. And
Nice.
at the time, I remember not liking that as much, but I grew to like it. And now I love it. It's like a favorite song of mine. I love that song. Um, but it was like that started steering me in that direction. And then I caught sight of, I remember the older kids talking about this guy, Alice Cooper, and his Billion Dollar Babies album, and the song School's Out was all over the radio and stuff like that. And that was really like affecting me in some way. And but you heard all the rumors that, oh yeah, he does this on stage, he does that, and he chops his head off and he hangs himself, and all this crazy stuff is going on. And my little mind was getting blown away, man. And I was really into monster movies at the time too. Like they're showing all the classics on Creature Feature, and we had a local guy called The Ghoul that showed late night horror films, and the Houlihan and Big Chuck were these guys that showed late night horror films, and I watched all that. And so Alice Cooper effectively was the blend of all that. But then I discovered Kiss, and it was essentially the same thing as was going on with Alice Cooper in a grander sense, I guess. They were instead of having one guy, there's 4 superheroes, man, that were Kiss. And you could pick your favorite guy when you're a little kid. And before Kiss blew up, I'm talking way before, I discovered them. Actually, what happened was my older brother came home and said, there's this band called Kiss, and they spit blood and they blow fire and they wear 7-inch heels. And he's going on and on, tell me about this. I'm like, wow. Again, I'm picking up on all this. And then I saw them on the covers of like little tiny pictures, because they weren't mainstream, nor were they even big in any way at this point. We're talking like Dress to Kill era. And I saw their little pictures on the covers of Rock Scene magazine and things like that, cover Cream maybe up in the corner. And oh man, that is so cool. And so my mom bought me my first Kiss album because I was getting stitches. My brother had thrown me into a swimming pool. My head ricocheted off the side, and I get stitches in my ear because my ear got torn in half. And so
Oh
she
wow.
felt terrible when I was getting the stitches out. So she took me to this big record store, local record store called Peaches Records and Tapes. And like all the bands like would do in-store appearances there, like Van Halen appeared there on their first tour, and like all the big bands did appearances there and that back in the day. And it was just this huge mecca of rock and roll. She took me there, and I was going to get a David Essex album that had Rock On it, because Rock On was a hit tune at the time. And I really thought David Essex was cool. But then I was like, ooh, I got shifted over to Kiss. I'm like, oh man, that band Kiss. And she got me Kiss album, and then that was it. From then on, I was like, man, somehow I just have to be a rocker in some way. So I do the silly band thing that kids do in junior high school or high school, or wherever. But I mean, there was nothing good. I was in a band called the Vandals in 10th grade or whatever, that we played like a roller rink, roller arena, or roller rink, roller skating place, and things like that, battle of the bands, high school stuff. Um, but nothing major. And then after high school, I was spinning my wheels. And I was just a big rock fan, and I'd always be the guy that was just in and out of bands really quick. And there was a local band called Enforcer that I briefly, their singer either quit or was canned, fired. I don't remember, but they replaced me with him, and I was practicing with those guys, and they were a much heavier band. They were than what I ended up doing, and which was kind of like not my cup of tea. I didn't think they like really fit my vocals. Well, the guy they had before me was great. He was a Phil Mogg sounding guy, like from UFO. If you're familiar, I'm sure you're familiar with UFO. He had that kind of a tone to it. A great singer, um, and they were man, they were very I don't know what kind of influence I'd say. Maybe Scorpions, maybe
Right.
very old school Queensryche. I don't know. I can't even put like a label on it. But really talented guys, and some of the guys went out and do some really cool things. Um, but I was in that band for a minute, and then a local guy, a couple guys recruited me, scouted me to be in another local band. And I never sang. I never ended up singing for them, but they wanted to be their singer. That was they became they became a big local band. They did,
Okay.
for the glam scene and all that. They're playing the clubs out here, playing the bars and stuff, and they became they really started out doing copies and stuff here, and then like their singer had the guy that ended up singing for them, and I just bailed on them. I don't know what it was. I just got cold feet. I didn't want to do copy tunes again. I didn't want to invest a lot of my time to do something, and I'd always followed the trends of what was going on in LA, and I was watching when I say watching, not physically watching, but I was watching what Motley Crue was doing and bands like that in the LA scene. And I was following the I read Kerrang magazine all through high school, and they would have little pieces on what was going on in the LA scene and stuff like that. When Wasp was up and coming, and Motley Crue was up and coming, and all that those bands were coming along. So that's what I want. In high school, I'd tell my friends, man, this is what I want to be doing. I want to be like these bands. And everything was very very theatrical at that point. Wasp, Motley, those bands, they had that look. They did that thing where they combined a fashion sense with a look, with rock and roll, which is what I always loved about music from day one. And so that was what I really wanted to do. And then right around the same time all that was going on, Poison came to town before Cat Dragged In was out. Actually, it ended up being like, I think, over a year before they finally released Cat Dragged In. They played a little club called the Old Brooklyn Tavern, probably held about 100 people. But me and Brett, I became friends there. I got there early. I forget how I even heard about them, but it was Steve a great thing. Steve, my friends are coming and going from LA, and I caught them, and they just blew me away because it was so new at the time. It was exciting, man. It was really like you go one direction or the other. If you were in Cleveland at that time, you were either going to go and be a very heavy band and do thrash and do what the Bay Area bands were doing, down like bands, things like that in those very early days, or you could branch off and do what Motley Crue and Poison that was doing from LA. So I decided to go that route. That was, in my idea, that was where the excitement was at. That was where the chicks were at. That was the thing to do. It seemed like the right thing to do, and that seemed to be the way that I was being manicured to go in that direction by the people that I hung around, my friends, and the clubs I hung out at, and things like that. So anyway, so then I hooked up with the guys that I ended up forming Priscilla with, and that we just went to my guitarist's basement actually at that point, and we started cranking out songs. I said, "This is what we're going to do. This is the band we're going to be. This is what we're going to look like. This is what our stage is going to be like. This is what we're going to sound like." And that was what we did. And so basically, to answer your question, that was a long way of getting to your answer. But essentially, yeah, Priscilla was really my my true first band, I will say, that I did anything with. I was in, like I said, in and out of other bands, but Priscilla was the band that I dedicated myself to. That I said, this is the one that's going to take me to the top and do what I'm going to do, and so it was.
Right. So you were the main songwriter for the band?
Yeah, me and the guitar, one of the guitarists, Tom Fritchen, were the main songwriters. Yeah, we wrote essentially all the music.
Right.
Um, uh, yeah, they had actually him and the other guitarist Mike had been working together in other bands. They were friends through high school, and they were uh, yeah. If I can't speak for them, but when they told me, we actually bumped into each other. I can't remember if we ever did meet up at a local club. There was a local rock club up here in Cleveland that everyone hung out at. And I don't remember if we met there or there was a place called Wallace Lake. It was a park, a lake that everyone hung out at. Everyone got stoned at, everyone partied at, everyone, hooked up and picked up chicks or picked up guys or whatever they were doing. And I know we ran across each other a lot of times there, and they said, "Man, you should sing with us. We should start a band." And then one day, man, I said, "Here's what we're gonna do." I said, "If you guys want to start a band," I said, "let's do this." I go, "Here's what we're gonna do," and it went from there. And again, that was when everything was set in stone, and we decided to do what we're gonna do. But they presented some songs to me that you know, and I'm going to come off sounding like a dictator in this, or an egomaniac, because a lot of people like to paint me in that corner all the time, anyways. So I try to avoid it as best possible. But I think I make good creative decisions. Like I've always combined a decent business sense with a really good sense of art and creativity, and I've always been creative, whether it's been writing or making movies or doing whatever I do. Like I've always been told I have that gift. I'd like to think I do. I've always strived to do that. And when those guys presented me some songs, they said, "Yeah, we have some songs here. What do you think of these?" And again, not to come off in that way, but again, that's when I said,
Right.
"That's not going to work for me. This is what we're going to do." I said, "We're going to scrap all that, and here's what we're doing." And that's when we started writing all the original stuff off the old albums, the Wake Up the Neighborhood and the Lick and a Kiss and Stay With Me and Broken Angel and all that stuff. That's where all that came from.
So all those songs from the High Fashion CD were those songs recorded, written and recorded during the that era, or were
They
those?
were, yes, they were in that. We kept recording all through the band's early existence. We were recording stuff and doing stuff in the studio. But yeah, so like, and the lyrics show that. I mean, you could tell we're kids at that point. I mean, love them or hate them. We were young. And that what do you in that era, in that genre of music? What do you write about? Chicks and partying. So it's like I could say, I talk to friends of mine that are in bands, and then they're like, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed about this song or that song." And I will say this: I used to. There was a time, when Priscilla would do reunion shows I mean, you got to figure this is a band that goes back 30 some years. And there was shows that I did that I told my manager, I told whoever, was behind the shows or, the representation or booking the shows, where I said, "Listen, we're not doing Wake Up the Neighborhood. It's not going to," and, I remember getting in an argument over the phone with my old manager. God rest his soul, he's dead. Mitch Karchewski passed away suddenly years again. There's that passing away thing, man. Passed away out of nowhere. And he wasn't old, he was in his 40s. And the guy had, the world going for him, man. Um, and he we were about to do a big reunion show, and I said, "Mitch, I'm not going to do Wake Up in the Neighborhood. That's not what this band is anymore." And he said, "You got to do it, man." I go, "I'm not going to." He goes, "Your audience, your people that come to see you, they want to hear that song. I don't care. I don't give a shit what they want to hear." I said, "I hate that song. It's like the Janie Lane and the cherry pie analogy, that he hated doing that song. He didn't want to do it anymore." I get it. I fully get that, man.
I was so sick of singing that song. Even early, even the first couple of years, I sang the song 1,000 times, on stages, and I was sick and tired of it, and it was stupid to me, man. And the more people loved it, this is the irony in all this. The more people loved that song, the more popular it became, the more I hated it, man. And it's so weird because I loved it. I wouldn't have recorded. I wouldn't have written and recorded that song if I didn't believe in it at one point. And there was a point Cheap Trick wanted to buy that song from us very early on.
Oh wow.
But this is when we were recording it originally, and the producer or the engineers and producer in that Sean Bevan worked on all those early demos. Sean Bevan's the guy he went on to work with. He produced a bunch of Marilyn Manson stuff, the Mechanical Animals album, and other material of Manson's and Guns N' Roses. He produced it. He did so much stuff, no doubt. And God Lives Underwater and all these big bands. But early on, he was working with us, and he'd had the hookup with Cheap Trick, and he presented that to us. And I said, "There's no way, man." I said, "This is our hit song. This is the one that's going to put us on the map. So we're not going to sell that to anyone. This is ours." And that's how much I love that song. And then if you'd have caught me just a year later, I'd have given it away. If Rob Zander or Rick Nielsen came up to me and wanted that song, I'd have handed it to him on a golden platter and said, "Here, it's yours, man. Have fun with it." And that's just how things change along the way. And I can't even pinpoint exactly what it is, other than you change as a human being, as a person, and you grow and you mature and you evolve. And that's what it's all about, is evolving. And that's why, like, by the time you get to later Priscilla and you get that Eight Lives Gone material, it's a lot darker, and the influences that work there and the things that are going on in my life were completely different. I could give two shits about partying or hooking up with chicks anymore or anything like that. It was about life and death and everything in between, man. And that's where life takes us, and had Priscilla early on continued just to record all through, had we landed a major deal, which we embrace. We never crossed that line, but like Atlantic Records, we were a huge band on the underground in America, and Xerox, there was a satellite radio station back then. It was satellite. It wasn't streaming, it was satellite. And Xerox picked us up, and a bunch of our songs charted. Licking a Kiss, Wake Up the Neighborhood was the really big one that charted on their station. And it was in the top five, I believe. For an outside band at that time, it was unheard of. So when that happened, man, the record companies were lining up. They were presenting tours to us with man. I mean, there was names floating around like Bon Jovi, Cinderella,
Oh wow.
Aerosmith, man. Oh, they're floating everyone past us, man. And manager, they wanted. Here's where the problem came up with. They wanted to buy us outright from our manager, and I believe the number at the time was $80,000. I believe that they offered him because they wanted to buy his contract out because we were signed to
Right.
him, and he was negotiating all the terms. So he was investing money into us, but we were the kids doing everything. It was our life. So this guy's putting up money, which at that time in life, again, we're kids. So when someone's floating around $20,000 or $30,000, that seems like the world. That seems like someone's presenting $1 million. Well, they're not, man. Not.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he bought our souls for that money, which is, that sounds dark and drastic and extreme, but it's true because he owned us, man. Because we had no say in what we could do. It's like all these horror stories you hear with the Beatles or every band through time. Whether it's Boston or Heart or you hear this story all the time. Bad deals, bad deals. People having nightmares, bad deals. I can say I lived through that, because like he wouldn't let go of us. I begged him, man. I begged him. I told him I would sign a personal contract with him and give him shares of royalties, shares of anything he wanted. And his exact words, and I'll never forget, were, "Why in God's name would I sell you guys for $80,000 when I'm going to make millions off you guys?" He said at the time, he said, "You guys are the next Beatles as far as I'm concerned," which is laughable, I know. But that was the exact terminology he used with me. And he said, I'd have to be insane to do that. I would have to, it'd be unheard of that I would sign you guys away for a silly sum of $80,000 where I'm going to make millions off you guys. Well, he didn't, and none of us did because he screwed the deal up, man. Because you're only half for so long. If you don't answer that door when people come knocking, because people were knocking, man, for a while there. It got crazy. I just remember everything changing overnight, and it changes so quick. Just like people say, when lightning strikes, it strikes quick. And you got to be there and be receptive of that. And you got to think on your feet and on your toes and call all the right shots, make the right moves. Well, he didn't, man, and he blew it for us in a big, big way. So it never came around again to that level, you know. And again, you know, I was talking to someone just yesterday from another big local band, a band that was huge. They actually signed a deal with Atco Records back in the day, local band called White Noise. And we were talking about, we are like, yeah, you know, you wonder how things would have been, but maybe we would have been millionaires and maybe we would have been dead, you know, because as it was, I mean, I OD'd on cocaine at a young age. And that was, you know, the early days of Priscilla. And I mean, that was when I didn't have everything, you know, I had a lot at my disposal. I had people not, you know, coming at me, wanting to party, wanting to, you know, hand me drugs, I guess. And that was only in the small time, man. That was the minor leagues, you know. I can't even imagine what the major leagues would be like. And that go, you know, going back full circle to Scott Weiland, there you have it, man. You know, there you have a guy that, and he had so much tragedy in his life too. I mean, that poor guy was fighting a lot of demons. I mean, if you ever look into, you know, some of his personal life, I mean, both of his brothers died, and you know, he'd been molested at a young age. He had these horrible things that went on in his life, and I get it, man. I went through that whole thing with depression, which is where a lot of the Eight Lives Gone material came from. I came from a really dark place in my life to where, you know, things just, they change you, man, you know? And if, I mean, you know, God only knows, man, maybe if I'd have been a millionaire rock star at the time I was going through the things in my life, the depression that I was going through, um, when I was writing the Eight Lives Gone album, that might have cost me my life, man, because I was having a really hard time dealing with things, you know. And then even after that, man, it was a long time. It was up until the point where I met the the woman that became my wife now, man, that I finally saw the light again, and I started thinking outside of the box, which is what I do try to tell, you know, friends of mine that deal with issues and deal with anxieties and depressions and stuff. It's, man, just hang on and things will be okay. And you got to get outside of your little box, man, because once you get outside of it and look at life, just like Nikki Sixx said, man, life is beautiful, but you got to get to that point to embrace that and realize that. And it really is, man. And then when you realize how damn fast it ends, man, it's like, you know, why the fuck you want to kill yourself anyways? It's gonna end soon enough, man. That's the reality of it, you know, because I went through that whole suicidal thing years ago where I wanted to end it. And then when you come out on the other side, and I, you know, again, man, I would never ever point a finger, shake a finger at anyone that's going through that. It's horrible. Depression is awful because it sucks you in. It doesn't let you go, man, and it's so
Yeah.
freaking ugly, man, and it's really hard to get out of that. But when you do, when you can be strong enough to overcome that, to really realize that what's holding you down in the first place is not necessarily so, and it doesn't need to be so, that's when you see the light. And then you realize, man, how much beauty is out there, how cool the world can be if you let it be, you know? And there's always gonna be shit. I still go through like temporary, like minor bouts of depression where things will affect me. And I shut down. I tend to just go quiet and go dark. And, you know, I get pissed and I get moody and I, you know, whatever. But I get over it pretty quick. Anymore, I do. Thank God I do, you know, because I can't. I just, you know, it's such an ugly monster to battle, man. Is depression, you know. So like, you know, my advice, if I could give any to anyone that would happen to be listening to this, to anyone, uh, whether they're from the music scene or outside of that, if anyone, you know, wants just a friendly word of advice, man, just embrace life and look at the positive, man, and live life, man, and enjoy every day and make it count, man, and do really cool things and live your dreams. Even just chase them, man, and it'll make you happy, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm really happy that you found the right tools to confront those moments, uh,
Yeah.
those dark moments,
Yep. The
and
tools are all within us, but we have to allow them to work for us, man. Like once you realize how powerful your mind is, man, what you can do, you're doing it all anxiety and depression you create within you, you do it to yourself, and you let yourself get down in a hole, and you have to rise above that and look from the outside in, man, and realize that it's not so bad. Even if it is bad, there's still a positive light too, and you have to reach for that positive light and realize that you can do it. And when you realize how easy it is, you get angry with yourself for having been there in the first place, if that makes any sense. It's like, how could I have let something so trivial and stupid keep me down? It's like, I'm better than that, man. I don't need to be in that place.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm talking about a bright light, a good light. I see that David has joined us. Hey, David, are you
Cool.
there?
What's up, guys? Brad, what's up, buddy?
What's up, brother? You hear me preaching the gospel over here?
I did, man. That's like, I was getting teary-eyed, man.
Right.
I feel for you, buddy. I'm glad, but I'm glad you're with us. I'm glad you're with us.
For sure, bro. I wouldn't miss it, man. It's very cool.
Okay, so
Very cool. I tend to be dictating the conversation here, and like poor Santi's trying to ask me questions, and I keep just like going on and on about off on tangents, man. As you know, as our record-breaking 5-hour conversation proves.
5-hour phone call, man. Can't beat it.
Yep.
I mean, I'm learning a lot from you, Brad. So I just love to hear you talk.
Man, thank you. I appreciate it. I hope I don't bore people. Like if I'm saying some stupid, man, feel free to cut me off and say, dude, this has nothing to do with what we're talking about. Just,
let me butt in here for a second.
Sure.
I got to butt in here for a second.
Go on.
Santi, I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this with sincere honesty.
All right.
You're talking right now. We're talking with Brad. This is one of the most genuine, sincere people I know, man. And I'm telling you that from the heart.
Man. I really appreciate that. That's
and
awesome,
Brad,
man.
I mean that, man. I mean that.
I love hearing that, dude. And that's what I try to be. I mean, that's all we can be, is be ourselves and be true and speak from our heart. And I know, dude, even to this day, I'm sure there are people that I'll have brushes with, whether it's in public or wherever. And I'll hear to this day, I'll hear stories like, yeah, I ran that Brad Slitt guy at this show. I just heard this again the other day. Like, yeah, man, you had some fucking rock and roll attitude, man. Like your head so high up in the clouds and this and that. Like you don't have time to talk to people. That's not me at all, dude. But here's the thing. Here's the true thing. And like I tell my wife about this all the time. This is going to sound really weird. And she asked me early on, well, how do you perform on stage? Because you're a great performer and you would never know that you have any anxieties at all. But people, when I'm in public places, when people get in my face and they want to, I don't want to say touch me, but like get real close to me and talk my ear off. And I love talking to people. But man, when I'm in a crowd and I'm in a crowded room and in a loud bar and people are like touching me and in my face and, can I get a picture and this? And I love it all. And dude, and I sincerely mean that. I love that anyone that even appreciates me or understands me in any way, I love them, man. And I love everything about that. I mean, they're the only reason anyone even knows my name or knows anything about me or would ever listen to my music. So I love that. But it stems from childhood, from being a shy kid and having whatever causes shyness and anxieties from an early age. I have it and I fight it. I do fight it. And I'll be honest, man, like it takes a couple cocktails in public to get me to loosen up because I have anxieties around people being in my face, man. And again, nothing against that. I'm sure there's people who said, man, that fucking Brad Slitt is in my face. Like Nikki Sixx could tell you stories about me, being up in his grill or whatever. I'm not that he would, he doesn't know me from a hill of beans, but I'm saying I've had those moments where I've had run-ins with people where I get carried away and I'm like, holy shit, dude. So I get it, and not that I'm Nikki Sixx or anything like that. I'm not trying to make that comparison by any means, but I'm just saying that I get it and I appreciate it. And I love that people have a fandom of anyone, whether it's of me or anyone. Man, that's what the world is all about. I think that's so cool that feeling that music or art or movies or whatever, it's all art. That feeling that art moves us, man, that it makes us feel something. that. I see it in you guys. I see it from, I know David more than you, Santi, but what you and I talked about briefly before we started recording, Santi, and I know David has it. I mean, he lives for that. He lives for the music, and he lives for art. It's all art. And that's awesome, man, because that's what it's all about. That's feeling alive, and that branches over into the people that bring us that art, whether it is a Nikki Sixx or whether it is a Scott Weiland or whoever it may be. Those people bring us that joy, and we want to express that to them, that we love them for doing what they do, and that's great, man. That is great. But man, I went off on such a tangent here that, oh yeah, I know what I was saying, that that I appreciate so much, David, that you do understand like who I am and what I'm about. And I try to come off that as that. I try to let people know that, and when I talk to them, whether it's on the phone or in person, I do try to let them know, man, that it's all good, it's all cool, and I love the people around me. I love talking to people. But if I ever like see someone in public and they say, dude, you got the rock star attitude or whatever, trust me, it's not that. I don't mean for it to be that. If I dress a certain way or look a certain way, that's just me being me. It's not me trying to be a rock star or trying to play a role. It's who I grew up being and who I've always been. My wife still yells at me. We're in Key West on our honeymoon, and like some of the ways I dress, she's like, "Oh my God, what are you doing?" I'm like, it's just how I feel comfortable, and it's who I am, and it's what I've always done, man. I can't explain it, but it's, everyone has their comfort zone. And if you felt like dressing up like a garage mechanic every day, then God bless you, man. That's your thing. If you feel like wearing a muumuu every day, that's your thing, man. I don't care how you dress, whatever gives you your comfort zone and makes you feel, eases the anxiety that going out and dealing with life and dealing with the world in public, whether it's going to a crowded store or a crowded bar or a crowded club, whatever brings us a feeling of comfort, that gives us our warm fuzzy blanket, that gives us our bubble wrap around us and makes us safe, then God bless you, and go do it, because that's what you need to do, man. Everyone has their tools that they use to effectively work in society. Mine happens to be, who I am, and I never mean for that to come off as being arrogant, although I know it does. And I'm gonna back up just a little bit. When I was young, yeah, man, there was bouts of arrogance, man. When I was learning to be a human being at an early age, I mean, when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, and I was this, young, whatever, rock star or whatever, local rock star, and people would see me, and if it was a big deal to someone, if there was a slight bit of arrogance, that, I apologize for all of it. Maybe at some point it was there because, I don't know, I was taught that was right, that was cool by the rock stars that I was emulating, that I was looking up to. I thought, well, they're doing this or doing that and being, putting on a front, so I'm gonna do that in that way, and it was like, just, a kid imitating what he thought was the right thing to do. Like I told you, David, I know when we talked on phone, I told you about the first time I met Def Leppard on the High and Dry tour, and how Joe Elliott was just really quiet, and he watched everyone out of the corner. Yeah, and he just watched everyone out of the corner of his eyes, and for a long time he wouldn't take his sunglasses off, then he took them off, and I was like, I noticed how calculated and like how he was like a snake. He was just like poised and like hanging back. But dude, I think that was his natural shine. And he is, because he's such a sincere and nice guy. And then God knows he's a much bigger rock star now and has been for years than he was at that time. But I think he was just growing into it and learning how to maneuver, in a public face, in a public light,
Plus, you
And we
got to
all need
think,
to do.
you got to be really careful when you're in that situation, when you're in the public eye. It doesn't matter if you're a local celebrity, if you're, Joe Elliott. You always got to watch, because there's always people out for something, and you just don't know. You got to kind of have your guard up.
David, God knows that's the truth. I'm going to tell you, man, I don't mean to interrupt, bro, but that is the truth, man. And it's sorry to say, sad to say, whatever you want to say, man. To this day, I still get it, man. There are, I hate to say it, and as much as I look for the good in all people, I know there's bad, and I've seen it firsthand over and over many times, man. Even being involved in certain facets of the arts, you know, whether it is, you know, music or making movies or whatever. And I've seen that time and again, man. And you know, you give people the shirt off your back and you try as hard as you can. I have, geez, going on 40 years of experience in entertainment. Well, and you know, 30 plus years anyways, man. And I use all that as effectively as I can in my ability to help any project that I'm involved with. And I do that. And I tell everyone I get involved with, here's what we're going to do, and here's how we're going to do it, and I'm going to do it big. And I use every connection at my disposal. People I've met through years and years of doing things I've done. And I try to work that to the best of my ability. And I extend that to everyone around me that's working with me. And then you turn your back for 1 second, and all of a sudden you got a shank in your back. And people, and you realize, you see it going on. You see little hints of it. Like, man, these people are using me. And it sucks that people do that, man. It really sucks, because I'm one to believe in the best in people. And I believe people's intentions are pure. I always do, till I get the last knife put in my back. And it takes about 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 knives till I finally fall down. But I eventually do. And I realize, motherfucker, man, this guy just used the fuck out of me, you know? And it's happened over and over again, you know? And people use you, and people say, and you hear everything, you know, you hear it from the people, other people around you, like, yeah, you know, he said he's using you. He said if he gets you on your side, he's going to open up connections, and he's going to open up his audience, he's going to do this and do that. And I know it, and I see it, and I'm not stupid, but I try to believe against that. I try to believe that's not so. That, man, you know, I don't think so. I've talked, you know, whoever, I'm not naming any names, and I will not name names going forward in any capacity. I will try as best I can never to put anyone under the spotlight of that, because it's going to be a negative spotlight. And again, could I chastise people in that light? Absolutely, man. I could brand people, man. I could, you know, hang them out to dry. But, you know, what's the point of that, man? Hopefully eventually they'll learn their lesson, you know. I try to help those around me. Am I a saint? No, man. Am I the know-it-all of all time? No. Am I the guy that's gonna answer all your questions, do everything right? Absolutely not. But man, I'm gonna try, and I'm gonna try to do the best I can. And if I feel I can't, I'll bow out of a situation. But all that being said, man, there's people, like you said, David, that just they'll exploit you, man, for all they can get, you know, and they'll try to move ahead. They try to move up that ladder, and they think their egos are so great that they think of themselves in such a manner that they feel, okay, you're going to get them to this level, and then they're going to be on that level on their own, and they're going to basically a Frankenstein's monster scenario. You're going to create them, and then they're going to take over, and they're going to destroy you. Well, no, you know, I've seen it happen so many times, and it doesn't work out that way, you know. And again, man, it's a shame, because people need to realize their own talents, but also their own place. Because if someone, you know, reaches out to me and gives me a hand up on something, man, I'm sure she can appreciate the hell out of that, you know. Or I'm going to try to, for sure. I'm certainly not going to put a knife in the back, you know, because I try never to do that. Am I going to be pissed about someone dicking me over? Yeah, I sure am, because that's human nature also. But I also try to forget real quick too, because I can't go through life being tired and sore and pissed off at people, you know. So
yeah,
that's
I mean,
that.
I went, you know, go back to the depression thing, man. Sometimes I feel like I would get in these ruts, man, and it was terrible. And I don't know, Santi, if you ever dealt with it, it's, you know, that stuff's not cool. And then, like, when I met Santi, it was like cool. Our first conversation, we didn't even know each other. How long were we on the phone, man? I know we didn't do 5 hours, but.
No, it was like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours.
Yeah, and it was so, you know, it was just like, you could just tell the good people, like, you really can.
Right.
But you won't be able to do that unless you really get to know them. And you have, like, when I first saw you, Brad, not on stage, but at Wasteland, like out in you do have an aura about you. You do have, look at me, I'm a rock star. You have that. You carry yourself that way. And I don't know if that's probably why a lot of people judge you, like you say, oh, he's arrogant or whatever people say.
But here's the thing,
when I
David.
came up,
That's something I've done since I was 5 years old. It's not an intentional
yeah, I mean,
thing.
that's you.
You know what I'm
That's
saying?
you. But that's awesome. I wish I could walk into the room and demand that kind of attention. But the second I started talking, when me and you started talking about music, we were up in one of the rooms at Wasteland, one of the party rooms, and we were just, me and you were just standing like in the corner, just talking music, man. And that was like, that's when I was like, man, this guy's cool. This,
Yeah, that's awesome,
just,
man.
it's just that initial, you gotta talk to somebody. You gotta
That's
talk
it.
to somebody.
Yeah, when you break that ice,
I didn't know. I was just gonna say I didn't know how Nancy was gonna take me, But when we were talking, me and him got along like awesome, like right off the bat. And that's just
that's
cool
cool.
when you
jive with someone, man. I mean, and that's really cool. Man, speaking of Wasteland, to touch on what a party that is, huh? The world's biggest frat party.
No doubt.
Those used to be some good times there, man. But yeah, man, you just know when you're gonna get it on with someone, like kind of like when you mesh and you have a lot in common, and then you feel that person's spirit, I guess, and it's like it's cool, man. Like I could tell you have a bad bone in your body, Dave. Like you're a good dude. You mean well, and you have a sincere appreciation of music and things like that, and that's awesome. Like I said, and I would never wish to exploit that from someone. If someone is appreciative of something I've done or is a fan of me or something I've done, that's cool as fuck. And I would never seek to again exploit that in any way or look down on that in any way. And I just it'd be a much cooler world if everyone thought along those lines. I think that if everyone could just
no doubt.
be a brotherhood instead of being all these different rivalry gangs, well, I want this and I want that, and I don't think this is right and I don't think that's right. And then I'm just going to touch on this for a half a second, but politics, man, it's the biggest divisive tactic in the history of mankind. It's the biggest tool of division ever created, and people buy it, every bit of it. I mean, Jesus, you can't even go on social media and hint at one political affiliation or another without losing fans on one side or the other. And I have no political affiliation. I'm right down the middle. I don't, I think everyone's to get to that degree of power, man. You think those guys are on the up and up because they're not? Do you think they give a shit about you and me because they don't? So the people that live and die for their I don't want to say cultural heroes, they're political heroes. They got it wrong, man, because people don't give a shit about you. They wouldn't send you and your kids off to war if they gave a shit about you. I'll put it that way. Your kids are cannon food for the politicians, for the people in charge, man. They're and that's none of that's cool. I'm anti-war. I'm anti, and I know a world like that can't exist. Like my wife always tells me, man, you're thinking about the Garden of Eden. You're thinking about utopia, and that's just not. It can't ever be. And I understand. I agree. But it's a shame, because man, I don't believe in any of that stuff. I think it's all horrible. And I've had family, both my grandfathers, I'm not going to get into anything and naming names or places or wars or whatever, but both my grandfathers died in a war. And so I know how that tears families apart. I saw the effects it had on my parents and everything that happened around me from then on. And to this day, in a sense, it does. So if there's anyone that's trumpeting, a war and man, we need to kick this country's ass to do this, to do that, or we need to stand up for this, we need to show this person a lesson, or that guy a lesson, or this country a lesson. Man, do you understand that you got rival teams that are being set to oppose one another by someone that's calling the shots, and that person calling the shots doesn't have any of your interests at hand at all? They don't give a shit, and they're putting your kids in harm's way, and they're killing your kids, and they don't give a shit. They don't care. It's all numbers. Everything that's going on in Russia and the Ukraine, man, those, every time you hear the body count and the numbers count, and I know I'm getting really deep and heavy here, but it's like that, the people in charge, they don't care, man. Those are lives. Every person, every time you hear a number, that's affecting hundreds of people around them. And those are loved ones and families and people that people have cared for.
And so everything about it is wrong. It just is, man. And and again, I
So,
understand that you can't, uh, we're always going to be rivals with someone, and those people are going to be at war. We've been at war since the dawn of mankind, and it's going to continue till the end of mankind. But it's a shame, so I can't be a proponent of something that is a war machine and that just is all about doom and gloom. And I'm not pinpointing one political side or another, and I hate it when people do that, man. I hate it. And man, I shouldn't. Again, I'm not even going to name names, man. I had this childhood hero, and he's still a hero of mine. He's one of my favorite all-time bands, one of the first bands I ever saw live in my life, and was just a great, great band. And he's a friend of mine on Facebook now. And when the riots were going on and all that, I said something, it could have been perceived as being anti-Trump, but it wasn't. It wasn't even. I said something about, I wish he would have chosen his words differently. And man, and then me and this guy are still friends and all that, but he's so passionate about the conservative party, about the Republican Party, and about Trump. And it's like, listen, I'm not saying that. That was your perception of what I said. I didn't even say that. But this guy just saw red by what I did, and he was inflamed, enraged by what I said. And it's like, man, dude, like all the beauty of the art that he created, helped to write some of the greatest songs to me of all time, and some of the greatest rock songs, and they're just beautiful. It was such great, beautiful music. And that legacy is being tarnished by a legacy of it's being poisoned by the hatred that politicians are putting in your head, and that shit doesn't matter. That shit's going to live and die. When he dies, that his political beliefs will die with him, but his art will live on. The beauty of that will remain. But now, when I listen to it, I tried to gloss right over that. I don't hold personally because, like I said, we made amends. Everything's cool. Everything's good. But I still, when I listen to certain songs, I'll think, man, I can't believe the politics, got him that pissed off that he could say these things, because it doesn't matter. And now again, that's why I keep my mouth shut, man. And you're not, you have political discussion with me, which obviously this is not. And I'm the one that's turning it into that. But my point is just that, man, just be a human and let art dictate the way, I guess. And I know art's not gonna call the shots in life, because that comes down to leadership and things like that, and that's unfortunate. But I guess that's why there's opposing sides. Anyways, I talked in a big circle on that one.
I mean, this hair metal podcast has gone a weird turn, man.
Right? Where is the
But hey,
you said
I'm here to
perfectly,
bring it back.
Sandy.
I'm here to bring it back. I want to ask, Brett.
Yeah.
Okay, now all those feelings you got inside you about all this stuff going on, when you go back to your catalog of music, songs that you wrote personally, what ones stand out as being probably the ones that represent you the best out of your whole
Okay.
catalog?
I love Eight Lives Gone is a song that I wrote in my darkest time in my life, man, when I had four cousins, all of the age of 21 and under, that died within a few years of each other, suicide, overdose, just terrible things. All these bad things. My father died. My cousin's baby died. Uh, all these terrible things happened in my life. And that was me just basically saying, in a sense, it was my ode to suicide. It was me saying, and I know, and this is what I preach against. And that's why, like I said, I've come out on the other side, man. But that song was, me saying, I think maybe I'd be better off dead, but I got 8 lives gone, but I got 1 life left. And the life I got left is what I'm living now. And I'm happy, man. I came through on the other side, and I'm here to say that everyone can, man. Everyone's got 9 lives, man. Fuck all those shitty 8 lives that you may or may not have lived. And they weren't all shitty, I'm sure, for anyone. But man, you're gonna hit every once in a while. You're gonna hit a pothole in the road that's gonna fuck up your ride, and you're gonna dwell on that, and you're gonna look at your broken axle, and you're gonna be like, oh fuck, why always me, man? Like this sucks. I don't want to be dealing with this shit anymore, and this is all I got. Well, man, just fix that fucking broken axle, put your tire back on, and get back in the car and ride, man, and fucking race for the fucking beach.
or race for the ocean or the sunset or whatever makes you happy. The mountains, man. I'm just saying, whatever brings you your joy, man. Maybe it's your fucking room to crank out some tunes, man. If that brings you your joy, do it, man. Do whatever fucking makes you happy and live life, man, and kick life's ass. Cause you got one, man. So yeah, Eight Lives Gone, man. Like lyrically, that song just came together in a matter of hours, man. And I loved it, man. Like, and I love everything about that song. I love the flow of it. I love the melody line of it. And lyrically, I love it, and it really does represent. But I want to say, because that is the negative side of things. So can I say that represents me as a whole? No, but it represents what a point in time that I thought I was a very effective songwriter. Now, I think High Fashion is a really badass song, which ironically was not on the High Fashion album, but the name for the High Fashion album came from the song. But there is a demo of the High Fashion song on the re-release of the High Fashion album. It's a rough 4-track demo, I believe, where we bounced tracks around and tried to turn it into like a 12 or 16 track song, but it's so muffled sounding because all the tracks are bounced around so many times. But the High Fashion song, I think, is a really, really cool, badass song. And I love doing it live, and I love listening to it. I'm a little tired of listening to it, but I never got sick of it. It's not like Wake Up in the Neighborhood where I got sick of it, and I never got sick of performing it. I think it's a really cool song. It kicks you in the nuts, and it does exactly what a rock tune's supposed to do. And speaking of Def Leppard and High and Dry, which I know is your favorite album, Dave, like that song, to me, I always thought that song would fit right on the High and Dry album. Like that was such an influence on my writing style of writing that song. I always thought, man, Joe Elliott could sing this song and it would fit right on the High and Dry album. Like the melody line of it and the pacing of it and everything about it. I just imagined it going right onto that album. And that was where that came from. That whole thing came from. So yeah, those are two songs I really dig. That I think they're powerful songs in their own right. And there's other songs on the Lives Gone album that are really powerful to me, and that I sincerely believe in. I think it was a powerhouse album. I really do. I think the album is great. I think that if that album had effective marketing behind it and had a big promotional push, and that I think it could have been a giant of the underground. It could have been mainstream for the underground, anyways. It was a very good album. But like I was telling Santi this when we were off the air earlier, my record company was upset that when I did the Eight Lives Gone album, that it was so heavy and so dark. But I told him, I said, I'm at a different point in life. I said, if you think I'm gonna write another Wake Up Neighborhood, it ain't gonna happen, man. Like I'm not a kid anymore. I'm not a teenager. That's not what I'm about. It's not what life's about. And I just can't write something like that. I could, but I don't want to, So yeah, life moves on.
I mean, it's just natural for you to dress like that.
Yeah. And,
so.
hopefully, I mean, I keep kicking around the idea. Last year, 2 years ago, actually, over 2 years ago now. I mean, time flew by here with the COVID, everyone in lockdown and everything. But Priscilla was about to. We just played one giant Christmas show. We were the headliner at a place called the Beachland Ballroom. The WJCU local disc jockey Bill Peters does a benefit show there once a year, every year. And every year he's done it for, I don't know, a dozen years, 13 years, something like that. I can't remember the exact time. But every year, a very, very heavy Cleveland band, original Cleveland band, headlines that. So that year, which was the year right before COVID hit, he personally handpicked, and he'd been asking me for years to do it. And I kept telling him, Bill, the band's not together. I can't do it. And this year he happened to hit on me on it. And I just talked to my guitarist. I said, you know what, Bill, I'm talking to the guitarist. I go, let me get right back to you. I'll tell you. And, he asked Priscilla to headline the show. I said, you're taking a big leap of faith here, Bill, because I said, your audience is not a glam metal audience. And he said, oh, they're going to love you, man. It'll be just fine. So that at that time when we were getting ready and practicing and rehearsing to do that show, we were starting to toy around with writing some new songs, and we were talking about writing new songs, if not a whole new album at that time. But that kind of fell flat because everything that happened, everything fell apart. I was getting ready. I was gearing up to make a new movie that I had just put together. I'd been writing the script over the course of a couple of years. It was a monster movie, a little mini epic movie. There's a follow-up to a movie I made called Running with the Angels, and I cast it all. I auditioned and cast everyone. I put it all together. I got all the camera guys. I put everything together, and then COVID hit, and everything got blown apart, man. And here we are, man. Time kind of stood still in a way, and now everyone's picking up the pieces, So now we're, Priscilla, as you know, Dave, me and Billy Morris put together this show that we've been putting together. It's a big 80s reunion show that Priscilla and Kid Wicked are headlining, and we got every other, pretty much in some way, shape, or form, every band that was a runner in the 80s scene, the hair metal scene in Cleveland, if you're around here, in the Akron scene, for that matter, we got White Noise out of Youngstown. Every band's going to be represented in some capacity at the show. Like I said, we got Priscilla and Kid Wicked are the headliners. We got the Knockouts and the Sammy T Band opening it up. And then there's, I think, going to be another opener. But then the finale of the night is going to be this thing where every band is going to come on stage and do like a song or two or three from their original material from back in the day. So it's going to be the first true, like, big all 80s, all reunion hair metal band, like Akron Agora, to name a club that Santy's unfamiliar with, but you're probably familiar with, Dave. But if you were around the Akron Agora, the Flash Gordon's days, or any of that, man, anything, the Peabody's days from the old Peabody's, that's going to be represented that night. So that's where we're at now, So we'll see what happens and where everything, everyone's moved on in life, and it's so hard to get everyone together to do things, and everyone's families and jobs and careers. But we'll see where things go, man. Maybe because I know like there's what's that? What'd you say?
I don't know. Is he there? Brad, you there?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. I thought you were saying something, Dave. But anyways, yeah, we'll see where that goes.
Nice.
I mean, like the record company, they're the record companies I've worked with, and that we're shopping my albums in the past and offering me deals. I mean, I put out 3 records in the last 10 years when no one else was doing anything. I signed 3 separate record deals, and they're interested in putting out another album of new Priscilla material. Would I like to do it? Yeah, man. Like, why not? It's art and it's creative. If everything fits and everyone is on board and everyone's cool. Again, man, I don't want to put a gun to anyone's head and force anyone to do something they don't want to do, But if it comes together, it comes together. I mean, I have the songs to fill it, and I have songs that I think would be great songs for this moment in time at this era in my life that I'd like to put out, and when I'm dead and gone, people can listen to this and look back at this and hopefully get a kick out of it and say, man, this dude did some cool stuff in his time, because that's what it's all heading to at this point in life, Again, with the death of so many friends and loved ones and family members and all that, we have to think of things in those terms, And I don't know, I just hope to leave behind somewhat of a pretty cool legacy that hopefully, I always think that, maybe someday there'll be a motley crew of a next generation, and they dig up an old Priscilla album and say, man, let's fucking do a remake of 8 Lives Gone. That song will kick ass. And I'll be dead. I won't get to hear it, but hopefully, like, one of my friends or my friend's kids or my stepson, or maybe they'll pick up on it and be like, that's badass that this band is doing my stepdad's song, or something like that.
Right.
I think about stuff like that. I think everyone thinks about it in some way. That's all we got, man.
Absolutely. So what's the deal with you being called Elmar Kramer on the album?
We're not going to talk about that. Let's move on with that. That's a typo. That's a typo, Santy.
Oh, really?
That's typo. That's one heck of a typo.
Yeah, that's a typo. Yeah. I'm gonna yeah. We're gonna breeze over that. We'll discuss that off air.
Okay, yeah, no problem. We can always edit this out.
But
Yeah, it's all
hey,
good, dude. It's all
hey,
good.
Sandy, hey,
Yeah.
Sandy, he does have a very cool story, and I hope you can talk about it, Brad. But you were telling me about your interaction with John Bon Jovi. You know what I'm talking about? What could have been?
Oh, the Skid Row story?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah, when Skid
I
Row
thought this.
Oh, this is a cool story,
go ahead.
actually. Yeah. Um,
It is a cool
yeah,
story.
this is a cool story. So when I first met Bon Jovi, he was the king of the world at that time, and he was. It was right when the Slippery album had come out, Slippery When Wet album, and he was selling out. He could look at an auditorium, an arena, and it would sell out. I mean, he was the modern day Elvis for a minute in time, and I met him on that tour, and okay, leading up to that, I'm going to backtrack just a minute here. There was a band called Madam X out of Detroit. I saw them at a club called Shadows, which was the local rock club that everyone hung out at back in the day for a moment in time. I met Sebastian. He was from Toronto, Sebastian Bach. He was from Toronto, but he had moved to Detroit to sing for this band called Madam X. So when I saw them there, I didn't think much of the band. Good, they're a competent band, but Sebastian blew me the fuck away. And at the time, he had the spiked hair. If you saw the pictures of old Sebastian or young Sebastian Bach, like when he was 19 or so, which is how old he was when he was in that band, his hair was spiked to the moon. It must have been a foot and a half off his head. So this guy comes out, and I think I saw the sound check too, but he just blew me away. So he was great. He was a rock star, man, and he was better looking than any chick you'd ever seen in your life. He was so pretty. So after the show, me and him were partying and hanging out, and we're back at the hotel. And I still have the flyer poster that he autographed. It was an oversized flyer poster that he autographed for me from Madam X. And he kept telling me how cool looking I was. And I kept telling him how cool looking he was. It was like a mutual admiration society. And I said, dude, you are a rock star. I go, and I whisper, I said, I don't know about the rest of this band, dude, but you're going places, man. You're going to be a rock star. And it was fun. I got another story about that, about another band, but they're all my friends and they're still somewhat relevant. I don't want to go into it, but I said the same thing to their lead guy too, a few years back. But anyways, so I'm saying that to Sebastian Bach, and he kept telling me, he's like, dude, you're a rock star. You're a rock star. You got the look. So then he goes, he told me at the time he wanted to break away and do his own thing. He's like, dude, I'm not happy with this band. I want to start my own thing. He's like, do you play guitar? I said, I'm horrible. I said, can I play? Yes. Can I play in a band? No. And he goes, dude, just improve your chops and let's get a band going, man. And we were drinking, but he was serious. He goes, dude, it'd be the ultimate fucking band with both of us on stage. And he signed. I go, dude, I'm gonna get your autograph before I leave here tonight. Before we part ways, actually, it was like the next morning. I think I was leaving the hotel, but I go, I'm getting your autograph because you're gonna be a somebody. And he was laughing about it, and he signed it, and he said, Brad learns to play guitar. We get a band going, Sebastian Bach. And I still have that. I have it hanging like in my basement somewhere or something. And like I kept looking back on that. And when I started Priscilla, I kept telling them about this guy. I was just raving about this Sebastian Bach guy that I met. And I said, this guy is, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know where he's at now, but someday he's going to be huge. Okay, so flash forward to me hanging out with Bon Jovi. So Bon Jovi is talking to me and telling me that his manager, Doc McGee, is managing a band that Bon Jovi signed to his management, that he signed to Doc's management, called Skid Row. But they kicked out their singer and they're looking for a front man, an effective front man that's going to take these guys to the next level and be commercially viable. So Bon Jovi said to me, he goes, you got such a great look. And, we'd been talking that I'm a singer and that, and then I had this band that I just started. And, Priscilla actually was called Breaker Cherry at the time. That was the original name that I came up with at the time, that we changed on the spot because our manager at the time that was giving us money didn't like the name. And anyways, So Bon Jovi's telling me, dude, you'd be a good fit in this band, the Skid Row band. And because it was his childhood friend, Dave Sabo, that grew up down the street from him. And he made the promise to Dave early on that if Bon Jovi ever made, if John ever made it, that he would help Dave out. So here comes the time, years later, he's helping Dave out. He's paying it forward. So John says to me, dude, would you want to audition? Would you want to try out for this band? I go, dude, I don't know, man. I'm not that caliber. I'm not an all-star singer. I'm not a five-star singer. And I got cold feet. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm talking to Bon Jovi again, who at the time is the biggest rock star in the world. And he's presenting to me an audition for this band, potentially anything Bon Jovi's touching at the time. He'd just done Cinderella, he'd just gotten them their huge deal, and what came of them, and I'm like, man, this is big leagues. I'm not ready for this. So I got cold feet. But he asked me, he said, he got we exchanged information, and he wanted a demo tape. So he had his people contact me several times to say, do you have a demo tape coming? And this is the old days before cell phone. I mean, now everyone's accessible. I could call whoever I need or text whoever I need. If John Bon Jovi wants to get a hold of me, if he wanted to, not that he wants to, he could get a hold of me. He could send me a quick text or get a hold of me on social media or do whatever he needed to do. Back then, it wasn't that easy. It was a matter of phone calls and writing letters and things like that. So, dude, long story short, Bon Jovi had his people contact me a handful to several times about a demo tape. I never sent it to them. I never went forward. I never moved forward with that because I was gun shy. And also at the time, I did believe in my band. It was more the cold feet with the major leagues than it was believing in my band. But I did believe in my band at the time. We hadn't even played out yet at that point. We had nothing going, but Priscilla was in its formative stages. So then, flash forward a little bit further. I'm wondering who Skid Row is going to get to sing for them. So I pick up my copy of Metal Edge magazine on the way to band practice, and we're whatever. We're warming up. We're doing our thing. We're getting ready to practice. I open up to the Rock on the Rise section at the front of Metal Edge, and I see Skid Row, Bon Jovi's band that we've been talking about, signed singer Sebastian Bach, formerly of Madam X, to be the front man. I lost my mind. I literally dropped the mags. I said, you guys, that Sebastian Bach kid that I was, pumping up to you guys, telling you about, and I was going on and raving about this kid. I go, he is the new singer for that band John Bon Jovi asked me to audition for. And they're like, really? Really? I go, that's gonna be the biggest fucking band to come out of this entire scene. And for a second in time they were. I mean, that was so far at the tail end. We're talking 88, 87, 88, and 89. Things were starting to fall apart in that whole genre of music. But in that moment of time, I mean, they should have been, if things would have been a little different and a little the same and a little earlier on, I guess, they would have been, I guess, the Guns N' Roses, I guess. Guns N' Roses, let's face it. Guns N' Roses touring arenas to this day based on one album. And that could have been Skid Row, probably.
I think with Skid Row, I think they made a natural progression when they did the Subhuman Race album. That fit right in the whole grunge thing. It really did. I mean, they didn't sound like they were making it.
Torn apart. And that was when Def Leppard did, what was the Dave?
They did Slang.
Euphoria? No.
Slang.
After Slang. There you go.
Slang, yeah.
Which I thought was a train wreck of an album. You might like.
I don't know how long the delay is.
You what?
I don't know how long the delay is. I felt like I said it like 5 times.
And Slang.
Right.
Oh, I get what you're saying, Dave. I get it. No, man, but yeah, that was a moment in time in rock history, in hair band history, that everyone lost their way. I mean, dude, hair metal was the plague for a second, for a long moment in time there when grunge came out. Grunge not only kicked hair metal's ass, grunge was the death camp for hair metal. If you were in any way affiliated with the hair metal scene, you were dead to everyone, man. And everyone was reaching for straws, trying to find their way, you know? I mean, there was bands that like suddenly changed their spots. And, you know, a lot of those bands, whether it's Pantera, whether, you know, a lot of those bands, they changed their spots overnight. Now, they hadn't been in the limelight yet, so they quickly went from being hair metal bands to being heavy bands or being grunge bands. Alice in Chains, for that matter. There was bands that grew out of that, but they didn't get their success. They weren't in the limelight until things had changed over, you know? I guess maybe if it was smart, I would have started wearing flannels, you know, which I did for a second in time, you know, but maybe I should have started wearing flannels and writing grunge music, you know, but we joke about stuff like that, me and my bandmates, but, you know, I don't know, but no, you're like, I mean, Subhuman Race is one of my favorite albums ever, man. That's my favorite Skid
That's
Row
a
album.
solid album tonight.
Oh my God, that's a great album, man. It's so good. It was a number one album for them, you know. Like I said, that was their appetite for destruction, and it should have really had more staying power than it did, you know. But that whole band just, you know, they annihilated from within, man. They blew up from within.
Yeah,
So
they definitely did.
So Brad,
yeah.
yeah. So we gotta start wrapping this up. We're almost at the 2 hour mark.
I know, man. Here I am going on and on about life, love,
That's
and
totally
religion.
fine. That's totally
Yeah.
fine. But I always like to end things with a little top three favorite albums. So
Okay, man.
what
Top
would
three.
be yours?
That's real easy, man.
All right.
Okay, Van Halen 1 is number one and has been since I was a little kid. Okay, I have tinnitus in my ears. Probably it began with listening to that album so much. I own that album on cassette, 8-track, vinyl, CD, you name it, man. And it is melted. It's blown more speakers of mine, and it's done more damage to my eardrums than any other album. When that album came out, man, that redefined rock and roll. That was what rock and roll should be to me. They had David Lee Roth, who was the epitome of everything, everything cool, man. Just a rock star, man, a front man. Just he was what everything cool was. Eddie Van Halen, man. I mean, you don't even have to say anything about him, you know. But just in every song for song for song, you know, from sliding in with Running with the Devil, and actually Lord of the Flies sliding in from Satanic Panic on the Eight Lives Gone album was my essentially a concept, although it wasn't directly, but it was me sliding into the groove. I was like, man, because like the record company wanted to start out with High Tonight. They said, no, High Tonight should be the lead off track, which really, in a sense, it should be. It would make sense. But I'm like, no, man, I'm going to groove into it, kind of like Van Halen did with Running with the Devil. So it just kind of slides in, and all of a sudden you're knocked off your feet, and then we come and kick your ass. But so, you know, I mean, man, what can you say? Ain't talking about love. God damn, dude. You know,
Yeah.
everything about that song. On fire. Jamie's crying. I mean, dude, you know, you really got me just it's just cool, man. Like when you know you look up the definition of cool, it's Van Halen 1, man. In every way, shape, and form, man. It's just a perfect album to me. It is, man. From my moment in time growing up, it was everything. And there's other bands and people that I've loved, you know, as much or whatever that affect me in a way. Whether it's Elvis or David Bowie or Kiss or whatever. But man, that album that kicked me in the nuts, man. Then, okay, man, I'm, you know, neck and neck, and I'm gonna say only recently neck and neck. What's that? What'd you say, Dave?
No, I didn't say anything.
Okay, I
Not
think
this time.
anyways, okay. So, okay, number two, number three. This is I'm gonna say, Def Leppard, High and Dry is another perfect rock and roll album. If
Right,
you're
yeah.
into rock and roll, if you live for everything that is cool about just ass kicking, bone crunching rock and roll. Not no drawn out bullshit, not no, you know, sad songs or sappy songs or songs that make you feel any other way than let's fucking kick ass, party, and fucking get high and get drunk and just rock and roll. And again, that is another album that I can't tell you how many brain cells I killed in high school listening to that album, man. It was just cool. We would just cruise our cars and get, you know, grown ups to buy us beers and just rock that album, man, over and over and over. And again, man, it led to a lot of my hearing loss also. You know, I mean, Priscilla did my hearing in, but that album did it. But then also, and this is a very, very close third place to second place, only because it's such a fucking great album, man, is Queen's A Night at the Opera. Is such a beautifully perfect album to me. And it's not because the obvious choice is Bohemian Rhapsody and You're My Best Friend, although those are great songs. But dude, Death on Two Legs, one of my favorite songs of all time. Sweet Lady, one of my favorite songs of all time. And I'm in Love with My Car, one of my very, very favorite songs of all time. And Roger Taylor is every bit of fucking much of a badass as Freddie Mercury ever was to me. And Freddie Mercury is, the consummate showman, and he's brilliant, and I love him, man. And man, he can entertain, and man, he can sing. But Roger Taylor is so fucking cool, and he always brought that cool to fucking Queen. And Queen is very much a fucking perfect band with every guy in that band. I mean, they're all engineers, they're all geniuses, and they're all, physicists and whatnot, man. And just every guy in that band could sing like a bird and play like a motherfucker. And like 39 is a great song, and the Prophet song is the whole album is brilliant. It's a brilliant fucking album. And actually I've loved it since I was a kid, and I've loved it since it came out. And it was another one of those albums I got right when it came out when I was a little kid, before anyone else heard, before anyone heard Bohemian Rhapsody. Well, anyone of my peers, any of my generation that heard it, I was rocking it. And I wasn't listening to it to listen to Bohemian Rhapsody. I was listening to it to listen to I'm Level My Car and Death on Two Legs. And to this day, I can't tell you, that's another one of those albums that I've listened to thousands of times without question in my life. And I find it just as effective and just as exciting to me today as the first time I listened to it, if not more so. And I listen to the little nuances of it now. And I've watched now with, because of YouTube and things like that, I can watch so much of the creating of the background of albums and stuff. And I look at what went into it. And the genius that went into that album is staggering, man. And the fact that band did everything. Roy Thomas Baker as the producer, he sat behind the controls and he twitched the knobs and whatever. But that band, they made those albums. That was them, man. And the genius of Queen, I lost sight of them, or I don't want to say I ever stopped being a fan, because I was always a fan. But once they really hit huge after News of the World and when they went on, like, The Game was still a pretty fucking cool album, man. Like, and not for Another One Bites Dust, but for Need Some Love in the Night, stuff like that is Queen. That's what Queen was to me, man. And like early Queen is really fucking badass stuff, man. But when I look at that stuff, the fact that band single-handedly did all that stuff, they didn't have studio players coming in to help them write or to help them record and play on songs and things like that. That was them, man. That was the genius of Queen. And even like going back to like, you look at the like the genius of the Rolling Stones and stuff, like who I love, who I think are fucking brilliant. And again, not that I could take anything away from them, but I wouldn't want to. But man, a lot of that was played by studio players and fill-in musicians. They had co-writers and things like that. I'm not, and again, man, not to diminish any of their brilliance, because they're just a consummately awesome rock and roll band. But so anyways, again, another long-winded answer, but there you go, man. Like Van Halen 1, Def Leppard High and Dry, and again, and Def Leppard too, who Dave, I'm sure you're going to the show, but I'm going to see them this Thursday. But they changed. They became a whole different animal after that album. I mean, even Pyromania, which is still a badass album, was a whole different album. They changed their spots, so to speak, after the High and Dry album. Like, and I wish they would have continued. I wish they would put out at least a couple more albums in that exact vein, because, man, they had a lot of ass kicking to do. But when Pete Willis was removed from that band, I think they lost that rock and roll edge. They got a lot more commercial, and they just lost the edge. And I really thought when Phil Collins joined the fold, because of what he brought with him from Girl, and I was a fan of Girl when the Sheer Greed album came out, and I thought this band is going to be as fucking cool or cooler than ever with the addition of this guy. But it actually diminished, not to say diminished, but it changed it. It changed the band, I was never as big of a fan as Leppard. I'll always be a Def Leppard fan, and their roots are true. I think they're really cool guys, and they're, where their heart lies in Thin Lizzy and UFO and the really cool shit that I loved growing up, Tigers of Pantang, stuff like that. I love that stuff, man. And that's what their influences are. And when you listen to their B-sides and things that they do in the studio and things that they do when they're playing clubs in Sheffield and stuff, like to this day, that's the stuff they do when they do cover tunes and stuff like that. They're doing old, UFO and stuff like that, or old Bowie. And that's cool, man, because that's who they really are. Hysteria is putting millions of dollars on the table for them, but I don't think that's where their hearts lie. But I get it. Hey, man, what can you say? I mean, you can't knock a band that's playing arenas to this day. But yeah, so that's it, man. Van Halen 1, Def Leppard High and Dry, Queen of Night at the Opera. There you go.
I mean, those are
Yep.
really classic albums. I think
Yep.
I totally agree with you, and I can see those how they inspired you in your music for sure.
Yeah, if you listen, man, you'll see where a lot of stuff comes from, because I definitely don't have the depth of a Queen for sure. I never had that kind of talent. I want to say, or musical talent behind me. But yeah, I mean, it's there. But then you get to the crunchier stuff, the Roger Taylor, oriented stuff, and yeah, like that's the kind of stuff that drives me. Um, I've again, man, like I was never playing with the choir behind me or anything like that. I never had an orchestra. I never had orchestration. I never had anything like that. It was just essentially a 3-chord progression, in your face rock and roll band. If I'd been able to grow, I mean, just like Axl did, with the moving from Appetite to Use Your Illusions, all of a sudden he spent a year recording the album and brought in orchestration and did all that. It'd be cool to experiment with stuff if I'd ever had the opportunity. And I'm sure, I'd like to think I'm at least somewhat of an artist. I think I would have gotten some really funky stuff if I had the opportunity to do that.
Definitely, definitely. All right, so Brad, man, it's been a pleasure talking with you.
You too, Santi, man. It was really cool. And Dave as well. Maybe I'll see you Thursday at
Thank you.
the arena show.
I came in late, man. I just I wish I didn't have to work for a living.
Yeah, that blows, bro.
But Brad, it's always good talking to you, man. You know that.
You too, brother.
You know
Yeah,
that. Oh
Sure.
man. And Santi,
And,
that show
yeah.
he was talking about. Hey,
What's that?
that show that Brad was talking about with like the reunion show.
Yeah,
Oh, the October
I
8th
will
show.
I will be filming that night, so you will see it.
oh nice.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that'll be
Okay,
cool. 'Cause
so-
now, yeah, Dave's doing the documentary on Cleveland metal scene of the '80s, and pretty much everyone he's going to be filming or interviewing is going to be represented there in some way. So it'll be all
Yeah,
there in a nutshell.
that's gonna be an awesome night. And Santi, if I could fly you out from Argentina to Ohio, I would in a heartbeat, brother.
I mean, I would love to be there, but at least I'll get
Right
to
on.
see it. I'll get to see
Well,
it.
get off your pocketbook, Mister Deep Pockets. You cheapskate. What are you fly your friend Santi out, man? Get him a first class ticket out here to Cleveland. Show him the ropes.
Let the movie hit first, and then we'll see
Yeah,
how that pocketbook looks.
let's
Daddy
get that
Warbucks here.
Netflix deal first. Let's get that Netflix deal first.
Right.
Yep.
Sure.
All right, Brad. Cool talking with you. Let's keep in touch, and
For sure.
and yeah, I'll be. Do you have a flyer or anything for that show so I can promote it on our social media?
You know what? It's actually there's the flyers haven't been made yet because all the small details,
Yeah.
what's on the docket right now is, like I said, it's Priscilla and Kid Wicked is the headliner with the show. The Knockouts will be opening. Sammy T Band, who was a singer for a band called Spoiled, is going to be one of the openers, and there's going to be one or two other openers, and then, like I said, the finale of the night is going to be every band in Cleveland from that era is going to be represented. We got Legs Up's going to be on it in some capacity. White Noise, well, I guess Spoiled in a sense with members of that. Fatal Charm. Man, there's off the top of my head, probably possibly Liquor Sweet looking like.
Nice.
Like everyone from that era that came from Cleveland is going to be there doing some songs at the end of the night for the finale. It's going to be the big, whatever. It's going to be a big deal, man. I mean, it's going to be a cool thing. Like I told Billy Morris the other day, I said, this is something that will get me out of my house. Like, even if I didn't want to go to the show, if I wasn't a part of the show and I had no plans, like to do anything, if I heard about this, I'd be going to this show. So that's October 8th,
Nice.
in Cleveland, in Lakewood, actually. I think it is a club called the Mercury in Cleveland. So that should be really cool.
Nice. Well,
But no,
I'll
but
definitely-
to answer your question, we do not have like the flyers or the promo for it yet. That's, once everything is completely finalized the way it is, we're gonna work that up, and then I'll get it to you, Santi, and you could promote it if you'd like. I'd appreciate
sure.
that.
I mean,
cool.
a lot of those bands are being featured, have been featured, or will be featured on the show. So yeah, let's get that promotion going.
Yeah, that'd be rad, man. That'd be really cool.
Here.
Yeah. All right, Brad.
I'm gonna be doing a write up here soon on it, so
Yeah.
that I'm gonna put over social media. So we're gonna definitely get it going, and once I put out there that we're gonna be filming for the movie there, hopefully that'll bring in more people.
Right.
All right. All right.
Yeah, man.
Awesome, man. Thanks for being on the show.
For sure, Santi, man. It was my pleasure. It was very cool.
Okay, take care, man. Have a good one.
All right, brother. Okay, man. I'll
Cool,
talk to you.
man. Thanks, man.
We'll talk to
All
you.
right, later on,
Bye.
bro.
Talk to you later.
Bye.
Later on.
Alright, folks, sadly that's all the time we have for today, but what an episode, right? Don't forget to hit the follow button on Spotify and share it with your friends. You can also follow us on Instagram at hollywood.dreams.podcast. And rock on!